can create your own custom library, opt into our newsletter, search by show, host, guest, or topic of interest, or browse millions of hours of content across all of our Voice America radio channels. Membership gets you more. Visit voiceamerica.com today to get started and tailor the listening experience to your taste.
Welcome to What's Important Now, Making Time for What Matters Most with Eva Medilek. If you're struggling to stay ahead of your daily life challenges, you will want to listen close as Eva and her guests will help you address the most important priorities first. Now, here's your host, Eva Medilek.
Welcome to the premiere episode of What's Important Now, Making Time for What Matters Most. I'm your host, Eva Medilek, and this show is about making time for what's important to you and getting clear on what matters most. How you spend your time, effort, and energy is a direct reflection of your values and priorities. And when it comes to how we spend our time, we don't always choose wisely. You know, one of my favorite quotes is from the author of the Badass Book series, Jen Sincero. And she says, time comes to those who make it, not to those who try and find it. So it's time for us to protect our precious time and get clear on what's important now. And so my guest for my premiere episode is Josh Zepas. Now, Josh is going to share with us what happened when he discovered he wasn't as happy, as wealthy, or as free as he wanted to be. So let's lean in and listen closely as Josh shares how he discovered what matters most to him. Hey, Josh, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Eva, glad to be here. Honored to be here. Excited to share and spend some time with everybody.
You are my first. Ooh la la.
Ooh, I do feel very special. I have to admit.
You are. So tell our listeners about you, like who is Josh Zepas? Not necessarily what he does, but who is this man of mystery?
Wow, that's a big question. That is a huge question. I'm just a person who wakes up every day, puts 2 feet on the ground, and knows exactly why he put 2 feet on the ground. I am someone who's got clarity. I know my mission. I know where I'm going. And man, I am just excited about it. And I bring that up just because we talk about the importance of time. One of the things I heard this somewhere, and I don't remember where I heard it, but it really hit me. Most of us tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death. And that's just one of those, when I saw that quote, I was like, it hit me like, that is not going to be me. Heck to the no, right? So, I'm that person that I found, you can call it purpose, you can call it mission, there's all kinds of words for it, but I'm just very clear. After so many years of not being clear, I'm finally clear on exactly why I'm here and the impact I'm going to have, and nothing and nobody is going to stop me.
Wow, I hear that. There's a huge empowerment that comes with that level of clarity. You know, I've experienced it myself. And so I so appreciate you sharing that. And most of us are struggling due to a lack of clarity and consistency. And it's showing up in every area of our lives. So what is the main problem that you solve for people in your line of work?
Well, you know, you hit I call it the C word. You hit right on it. So there's 2 main really core issues, I would say. One is the lack of clarity. We don't know why we exist. We don't know what we stand for. We don't know what we stand against. We don't know, you know, I always ask people, I said, why did you get out of bed this morning? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is to make money, right? I got to do this. There's stuff I have to do, the kids, all this stuff. That's okay. But what is that thing just above making money? I just hope there's something more than just making money that drives you, that drives people. And finding out what that is, because getting clarity around that, first of all, if we're not clear on why we exist, why our business exists, why are we in this specific business versus another one, then no one else could be clear. And when other people are confused people don't take action. They don't buy
Mhm.
our products. They don't do business with us. They don't even want to be around us because they just don't know what we're there for. We're just like taking up oxygen. So getting clarity around why we exist is one of the most important things that we can do. So I find people where they're just confused. Like, I
Mhm.
know I got something good, Josh, but I just don't know what it is. And then the other thing is people are afraid to take a stand, completely afraid, like, oh my goodness, what are people going to think about me? Which any entrepreneurs out there, let me tell you something. You should only hope that people ever think about you again if you're in business. Because the number one reason for going out of business is obscurity. The number two reason is being forgotten. So
Mhm.
we we got to take a stand. I hope there's something out there that people stand for and stand
Mhm.
against. Some evil that shouldn't belong, you got to call it out. Something beautiful that we need more of, you got to stand for that. Uh, and I'm telling you, it has so much richness, and so much
Mhm.
clarity. And that's where the energy comes from. That's where we get excited about life again. That's what drives us. And all that crap that distracts us, because I know that's a big thing when it comes to time. All these distractions fall away because you don't
That's
get
so
time for
true.
distractions,
That's true.
right?
It's like ain't nobody got time for that.
No.
I'm on a mission. I've got a purpose. You know, when you were talking about clarity, what came to mind was a study that I had read that studies show when you are not clear on what's important to you and what your priorities are, you are actually up to 30 times more likely to miss out on success.
Yes.
And how we spend our time, our money, and our energy is a direct reflection of our values and our priorities. And so we got to be clear on what we want, be clear on what we don't want, be clear on what makes us happy, be clear on what makes us unhappy, and be willing. I always say it's my CPR, right? Clarity, priorities, and responsibility. We have to own the responsibility of creating and setting boundaries that support what's important to us and what our priorities
Absolutely.
are. And another thing you said that really landed was, the things that hold us back from taking a stand for what we want. And it's that fear of making a mistake, fear of what others might think. What if we get it wrong? Some of us who are entrepreneurs actually have a fear of being seen starting small.
Yeah.
The ego gets in the way, right? I know you've seen that. So, you know, we titled this episode, or I titled it based on something that I saw on your website, that professionalism is a poison, or is poison.
Oh boy. Yes.
Oh boy. So tell us a little bit more about that phrase, where it came from, and what you mean by that.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, I appreciate the CPR. I love that. And I
Yeah.
fully agree with that. I've got something called the 3 C's,
Oh, okay.
which actually does speak to clarity also.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, professionalism is a poison. So look, I spent 20 years in corporate America, shy, negative, skeptical, introverted engineer. So I understand professionalism very well because I had to do it. But it never felt right. It always felt like I was faking it, right? Like I was putting on a facade, or I had to say the right thing at the right time. And I went to business school and they told me, Josh, business and emotions don't mix. Keep your business life here, your personal life here, and that just keep them separate. But I was like, wait a minute, I'm one person. So who am I lying to? Am I going to lie to my family, or am I going to lie to my clients? And it never sat well with me, this idea that we have to have a professional persona or a professional personality. What if we could be human? What if we could just be human everywhere? We could just be ourselves. And when I did more research into it, what I found was that being human is not only easier, and because you get to tell the truth, but it's actually more profitable.
Mm.
It's more profitable to not be professional. I want to make sure everyone hears this. This is really important. There's a principle that everybody knows, but they don't teach you in school, and they don't emphasize it in school. And that's that people buy you first, your product and service second. And if they don't buy you, if they don't like you, they're not going to touch your product or service, no matter how great it is, no matter how much they need it. It's so crazy. You want to know human psychology? This is crazy. You could be selling the cure for cancer in a pill,
Mhm.
like pain-free cure for cancer in a pill. You could be offering that to somebody. And if they think you're a jerk and maybe they got stage 4 cancer, they'd rather die than do business with you. They would rather die than do business with you just because they don't like you. If people can get this concept into their heart and into their soul and into their minds, you'll see that professionalism is the only thing holding us back, that we think we need to be something or someone else to do business. That's it in a nutshell. Goes deeper if you want, but
Yeah, no, I want to go deeper into this because, I often speak into how our feelings and our emotions are sabotaging our success. And you speak to it as professionalism. So I think we might be saying the same thing, but from two different vantage points.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing you say when you talk about professionalism is something that's inauthentic to the real you. It's kind of you're shooting on yourself, right? You
yes.
should act like this. You should say it this way. You should look like this. You should. And other people are shooting on you and telling you what you should do. And then you're under a pile of shoulds that doesn't feel real to you.
Right, you're full of should, essentially.
Yeah, you're full of shoulds, exactly, because you've done should it all over yourself. And that's that persona of professionalism,
That's part of it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
The other part's what you mentioned before, which is ego, where we
Yeah.
have this thing where we have an ego to protect, or we feel like
Fake it till we make it.
Yeah, you know what? I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I believe in fake it or make it. Your choice.
Yeah. There's something connecting because there's that know, like, and trust factor. Like I think perfectionism is a poison, and trying to be something you're not is a poison. Done is better than perfect. You'll get better as you practice more, but there's something hugely connecting about being your authentic self. And so when I talk about emotions, I talk about being led by feelings and emotion that aren't aligned to the best of who you want to be, that are not forwarding your priorities and your values, but that are more of kind of a knee-jerk reaction, I would say, based on some emotional triggers that maybe had something to do when somebody said something to you in second grade and and all of that. That's kind of the primary work I do with my clients. And so, I hear what you're saying. But when it comes to our feelings and emotions, we've got to really be clear on discerning, is this feeling or emotion have my best interest in mind? I mean, we just had that example of the Academy Awards, right? Most of us were like, that is so off brand for Will Smith. He was clearly triggered and reacted to that trigger. And who, is that really the real him? And maybe the other part was fake. I mean, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but we can go into a lot of that. So
I'll play one on TV though. I will play a psychologist on TV.
I'm actually reading his book to really learn about that. And so much of it makes sense to why that happened for him that way. But, professionalism in your definition, just say it for us again so that they're really clear about what you mean by that.
It's actually those three things we talked about. It is perfectionism, and it's very close to perfectionism, which is why I don't like it, because we're humans, and you can either be human or perfect, but you can't be both. It's ego, so it's that ego that we built up, and then it's all the shoulds. It's all the stuff that we were supposed to do, and the problem is, and I agree with you on emotions, 100%, because one of the challenges is when we're not authentic, when we're lying. Let's just say what we really mean. When we lie to people. We feel shame, we feel guilt, we feel embarrassment, we feel all these kinds of bad, I don't want to call them bad emotions, but we feel all these emotions that don't serve us to be human. They don't serve us to make a good connection with people, and they don't serve us, therefore, in our business, life, career, whatever we're working on. See, we kind of open the door to all these emotions that don't serve us when we're lying, when we're being inauthentic. So I think you're 100% right. It's
Yeah.
we're all kind of in the same place there.
So who are you for? And what I mean by for is, what kind of person would benefit from having Josh Zepas in their life, in their world, as their coach, as their mentor, as their influencer?
I am for people. That's a great question, by the way. I am for people that know they've got something special. They know they've got a gift, but they don't know how to bring it out. They don't know how to articulate it. And they're in a crowded industry. They're in the sea of sameness, I call it, where they don't know how to stand out. They don't know how to bring that uniqueness to the front of their message, to the front of their business. And they need help doing that. They need someone from the outside. They need a coach, a consultant, someone to bring that out, ask the right questions, dig up that treasure that's deep inside of them, bring that to the surface, knock off this crap conditioning like we were just talking about, oh, honey, there's no money in that, and all the BS we're told growing up, and who can help them polish it and refine it until it shines so bright on its own. People come from thousands of miles to come see it. That's who I'm for. That good person who wants to be human again in business.
And so we're going to take a break in a couple of minutes, but tell me real quick, who shouldn't bother knocking on your door?
Anyone who wants to do business as a transaction, the slick salesperson, the person's like, this humanity stuff, Josh, you want to bring humanity back to business? Screw that. I just want to crank out as many sales as I can. I want to sell iced Eskimos. I want to sell timeshares to families that can't afford it, so they go starving for the next 30 years. That's what I want to do, because really it's all about me.
The commission
that person,
based,
best of luck. High five, go do what you got to do, but we're not working together. Sorry.
Got it. You know, I love these insights that we're getting into, the realness that we're talking about in this conversation. So in about a minute, we're going to take a 2-minute break, guys. And when we come back, Josh, I want to dive into your humorous side. I think our listeners have got a little sneak peek of it as well, but I really want to dive into how you use humor as a part of your authentic way of being, and some other ways that you use humor. So we're going to be back in 2 minutes. Everyone come back and let's learn how to bring humor into the humanity as well. See you in 2 minutes.
Okay, you guys are all clear. That was a great first segment.
Having fun. That's all we're doing. We're just having fun.
We're just being real and authentic. So totally forgot to tease that. All right. So I've got my welcome back. All right. So I'm going to bring you back by diving into why you feel that you have the authority or an expert on bringing this humanity and humanness back into people, to business. Yeah.
40 seconds.
Cool.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Oh, I'd love to get them.
In time.
All right, we have about 25 seconds. I'll start sending the audio to you guys. We're coming back.
Okay.
Living a life full of good health and happy relationships. www.evamedilek.com/reverse burnout.
This is the Voice America Influencers Channel. Be inspired.
You are listening to What's Important Now, making time for what matters most, with host Eva Medilek. Have a question for Eva or her guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5795. That's 866-472-5795. Now back to the show. Here again is Eva Medilek.
Welcome back, everyone. So we have been in this great discussion with my special guest, Josh Zepas. So just a reminder, if you have any questions or any comments or any insights that you'd like to share with either me or Josh, we'd love to hear from you and answer any questions that you might have. So at any time, you can call in to 866-472-5795. So Josh,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have this question for you that I tend to ask all of my guests when I'm interviewing in any way. What makes you an expert at this bringing out people's uniqueness in the sea of sameness?
Wonderful question. I would two
I'm good
things.
at that.
Two things. Yes, yeah. Hey, look, I believe everyone has the right answer. We're just not asking the right
The right
questions. So
questions.
I appreciate anyone who can ask the right questions.
Mhm.
There's two reasons really. One is I lived a shy my entire life. You know, some people say they lived a lie. I lived a shy. I was the
Mm.
one that was told, keep your head down, Josh. Don't make any waves. Obey. Like if I never hear that word again, I'd be happy. But obey, right? We follow the rules, and I did that my entire life. So I know what it's like to not stand out, to intentionally hide away my genius, my expertise, all that stuff. So I feel people that are in that position. So I can empathize with them.
Mhm.
But then, one day what I did do is I said, okay, and this, by the way, I left corporate America. I got into financial industry, the gym industry, competitive bodybuilding, all kinds of stuff. And one day I was like, time out. What's your genius? What's the one thing that you do better than everyone else you know, Josh? What is your expertise? All those 10,000 hours you built up over blood, sweat, and tears, all these skills. And then where do you want to play? Where do you really want to impact another person? What kind of service? How do you want to service the rest of the world? And I took all this and I crunched it together. And that's what crystallized to what I do today. Because I realized I am really good at asking the right questions. I am really good at engaging and digging deep into a person and finding that uniqueness and bring it to the surface. And I love words. I'm a wordsmith, just natural.
Mhm.
So what I had to do is I had to realize and accept and no longer be ashamed of what I was good at. Because here's the challenge, and here's the other person I'm for, just to kind of piggyback on the last segment.
Mhm.
I'm for introverts. Because the
There we
last thing
go.
introverts want to do is they don't want to brag about themselves. We're the ones, we're going to shy away from talking about ourselves, even if we're really good at something, we're never going to admit it.
Mhm.
So I had to figure out how to unlock that, which I did. And it's a beautiful thing when someone realizes when an introvert can really stand for something openly and shine. They can go from shy to shine. That's the
Yeah.
transition. Shy to shine. And I figured out how to
But
do
I'm
that.
curious, what was the mobilizing event, the wake up call, the 2x4
Oh,
to the head, the punch to the gut, whatever you want to call it?
yeah.
I experienced a punch to the gut, that kind of got me, out of my ego and into real authenticity. What was it for you? I mean, how does someone get to, having your hands in all of these different areas that you were contributing somehow to knowing, what, but wait, there's more. What is it?
Yeah. The first wake up call was when I was in corporate America and 19 years in, and I
Mhm.
was like, someone challenged me on my retirement plan. It was that simple. They said, just do the math in your retirement plan, which I did. And I found out I wasn't going to retire. That everything I believed, like my retirement plan was my religion. It was like, oh, I'm
Mm.
max funding it. I'm doing everything right. And then just like that, I realized had I not gotten that wake up call, had my friend not said, hey, let's do the math on it, I would have gone another 30 years just expecting it to work. And then I would have found out later that it wasn't going to work. So that made me mad. But the part that pissed me off, that really got me out of corporate America, was when I realized I wasn't supposed to know this. I wasn't supposed to do the math. I was supposed to just believe it like everyone else does.
Like a
And
sheeple,
yeah,
just follow the
everyone's got
leader.
one, right? Everyone's
Mhm.
got this retirement plan. Everyone's doing it. So don't question it. I wasn't supposed to question it. And that scares the crap out of me every day. It's what drives me to make sure that other people, or at least have the awareness level, because I'm so grateful that I saw it.
Mm.
Otherwise, we would not be having this conversation. I would not have sat down that day and said, crystallized my genius and really figured out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. None of this would have happened. I would have been sitting in the cubicle pretending it was all going to work out. Nope, being none the wiser.
Wishing and hoping and thinking and praying.
Yeah.
Well, you run faster scared than comfortable.
That's
and
right.
so it takes, I had a similar thing where I was scared. I was frightened. If I did not change, if I wanted my situation to change, I had to change. If I didn't change, nothing was going to change. So it really lights a fire under your booty quickly to make that happen, because I've had people ask me, how did I have the courage, to get over my fear of, all the things, making mistakes, what other people are going to think. I got to start small. I got to start all over again. And I don't know what I'm doing, how I'm going to figure it out. All of those what ifs.
Yeah.
And I was more afraid of not doing anything.
That's right.
That was my main fear. Like, if I don't do anything to get out of being an employee and working until I, can't stand anymore and still having very little to show for it, that frightened me more than anything. And I'd rather just go down giving it my all.
Yeah. In fact, it's interesting you say that, because the one thing I told myself when I left corporate was, if I win in life or if I lose in life, I just want it to be my fault.
Yes.
That's all I ask, right?
It's owning the responsibility.
I want to be in the driver's seat. If I crash the car, I'll accept responsibility. I'll sleep well in the cardboard box underneath the bridge here.
Yeah,
that's fine. Go. I can do that, but it's got to be up to me. I can't leave it in the hands of someone else where I work as hard as possible and then I'm still screwed anyways. Just
but they got rich. And they got rich.
Yeah, most people. It's funny. When I use this analogy, I say most people are in the trunk. Someone's driving the car. They don't even know who's driving.
They're not even in the back seat. They're in the
trunk. No, they're not even
God.
in the back seat because they can't.
They can't see where they're going. They have no idea where they're going.
They're in the trunk. What a crazy place to be in life. To be in the trunk of your own car.
Yeah, that's a frightening visual for sure. Yeah. So let's talk about the humorous side of Josh.
Oh my! You want a mom and dad joke? What do you want? Like there's.
No, when I first was made aware of you through a mutual acquaintance, I stumbled on one of your Facebook Live videos. And what attracted me to, I love sarcasm and I love brainy humor. And I actually dated a comedian for a few years, a very famous comedian in New York City. I don't know if I shared this with you, but we can talk about that later.
This is fascinating. All right.
It's a secret. People have to reach out to me directly to find out who. But my point is that I appreciate humor, and, in the world that we live today, a lot of comedians use humor to bring light and attention on some very uncomfortable truths that are happening in our world today. And what drew me to what you were saying, you were talking about racial inequities, racism, all of that, and you brought humor into it in a sarcastic way. And so tell us, all of us, a little bit more about, being the shy, introverted kid and most comedians, by the way, do start out that way, and they find that connection through humor. So what was that journey like for you?
It was actually fairly easy because, it's funny, I tell people I'm ESL, which is English as a second language. And inevitably they ask me the question, well, what is your first language? To which I reply, sarcasm. And I'm not even kidding about that. My first language was sarcasm. So to me, it's like just my natural language. It's just coming back home. It's how I communicate. Because I think humor is an emotional language, right? It's an emotional way to connect with somebody, which really gets to their heart. But it's also a kind of a positive language in a way, right? It's a likable language. So it's a way to say what you want to say and not have it be so, brutally honest, let's say, right?
It takes the brutality out of it, if I'm hearing you.
It takes the brutality out of it, but also, to me, the beauty of humor is you got to be vulnerable. You got to be willing to not only talk about yourself if you're doing self-deprecating humor, but you also have to be vulnerable enough to the topic you're speaking. Because if you offend someone or someone doesn't like it, you've got to be comfortable enough in yourself to take the criticism, to take the response, to take the, people talk about rights and response. They talk about my rights, but it's also, your responsibility. If you say something, they talk about free speech. Free speech isn't free. Sorry. Philosophically,
Has a
practically,
price.
free speech is not free.
Mm-hmm.
There's consequence, right? You got to be willing to accept the consequence of what you say. And for me, humor is a way to express that, and to kind of get that emotion into the words, get that emotion into the topic, in a good way.
Yeah. Well, I love the little analogy you said. It takes the brutality out of the honesty.
Yeah.
The honesty is still there, but it feels less brutal, or at least we're made to think that it's less brutal when you can address it in with some comedy, with some humor, have a little fun in it. But it does shine a mirror on us. And so, when I first heard you, and then we had an opportunity to have a little conversation after I reached out. Who do you target most in your humor?
It's like a machine gun. Everyone gets a little piece. I'm spraying everybody.
Needs, you're an equal
I
opportunity humorist.
am. But I like to. So when I tell people to tell the truth, because that's one of the biggest things I like to share. I like tell the truth. Like, what do you really want to say to the world? Caveat being from a place of love and good intention. Right? Never from a place of shame, hate, judgment, insult, but like from a place of love and good intention. So I like challenging people from that place of love, but I use humor as a way to help kind of, grease the skids a little bit. So the message gets through to their heart and doesn't stop at the wall. So it's the people I love challenging, which could be other political ideologies, people like we've talked about, the white patriarchy, the privilege that exists in this country, where someone needs to challenge them a little bit. They've been 400 years of being unchallenged, essentially. So it's time to step up and maybe give them a little challenge, give them a little poke, right? Because sometimes that might generate awareness. They might be like, why is this guy poking me so much? Is there maybe there's truth to this? Maybe, there's something here.
What type of resistance do you tend to get to your unique approach?
Oh, name it. Vitriol, denial.
I mean, does anybody come on stage and slap you in national TV or?
No physical violence yet, thankfully.
Yeah.
But no, it's again, I think intention matters, because intention is the fruit of character. So and in fact, I just did a post on this like a day or two ago about character and intention. So in other words, I think the whole concept of the post was, is a good deed, if something good happens, but you had bad intentions, is it still a good deed? To which I argue, no. I think intention matters. And I think if you have good intentions, but you screw up, you say something wrong, or you tell a bad joke, you'll be forgiven, because you weren't intending to be a jerk. You weren't intending to be racist or just, hit someone like with an unfair judgment. Whereas the opposite is true too. If you have bad intentions, if something accidentally goes well, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of credit for it.
Well, what's interesting is when I first started being more vocal about cultural inclusivity and cultural intelligence, it came out of me noticing, like right after George Floyd's murder, a lot of well-intentioned white people saying things on social media and being shamed, blamed, and guilted for saying the wrong things, whether it be all lives matter or I don't see color, or all of these things that they didn't recognize as microaggressions, and not knowing the effect that they had on minoritized communities. And part of it is because, people like me were slow to speak up, if at all. when we did hear microaggressions. It kind of was that weariness of, why bother? What's the point? They're not going to get it. And so, when we come back from this break, I kind of want to go a little deeper into it, because I really saw the intention of folks, their heart, and it was a choice for me. Either I could complain about them saying and doing the wrong thing, or I could help them knowing that they have an intention to get it right, not to be right, even though they're not actually getting it right. So, it's really important, I think, to really look at people's humanity and not expect people to be perfect and to get it right. But if their intention is more to get it right than to be right, and that was the difference. A lot of conversation, people were fighting to be right. They were just fighting to be right, and they weren't fighting to get it right. Help me. I want to know. I didn't know this. I never learned this. I never taught this. I have years of history in my blood that is just the opposite of the years of history in your blood. So how can we come together and get it right? And when we do come back from break, we're going to go to break in a couple of minutes. I want to dive into more of your humor around that particular subject, because, it is risky. It is vulnerable. I know when I was growing up, I heard from my dad, who grew up in Jim Crow South, you don't want to make a white person uncomfortable. Don't do it, let it go, because there was real danger in making white people uncomfortable. And so,
well, and speaking of just in general, we're not born racist. And I will also contend we don't want to be racist.
Yeah.
We don't, right? Yeah. I think people, you go deep enough, we have a core of love. That's it. There's really nothing else there except love. If anything gets coated over that, or if it comes out differently, it's something that happened that hurt us.
Yes. Something happened to us. And we built up these ways of being, if you will, as protection mechanisms. So, okay, guys, we're going to go to a break now. This is getting so good. You definitely want to come back. We're going to dive into how Josh speaks to the problem of diversity and inclusion among the privileged, and how you help privileged white guys see their racism through humor. And then also, he has a special guest for you as well. So we'll be back right after this 2-minute break.
All right, you guys, that was a great segment. You're all clear.
Thank you. Now it's getting juicy.
Oh, yeah.
How you enjoying it so far? We're so color
coordinated. Any conversation. I mean, this is all I talk about. This is what I live for. So I love conversations like this. Always. Always.
Oh, yeah, I do too. My struggle, and I may talk to you about this a little bit more offline, is, I'm so committed as well to my high performance coaching, because most of us, if we're stressed out, burnt out, overwhelmed, not feeling well, healthy, we're not showing up as our best selves, the best humans we can be, aligned to our intentions.
30 seconds.
And cultural inclusivity and intelligence, and merging the two. So we can talk about that too.
All right, at 15 seconds, I'm gonna start sending audio, guys. Last segment.
www.evamedilek.com/quiz.
We don't follow, we lead. Join us, the Voice America Influencers Channel.
You are listening to What's Important Now, making time for what matters most, with host Eva Medilek. Have a question for Eva or her guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5795. That's 866-472-5795. Now back to the show. Here again is Eva Medilek.
Welcome back, everyone. This is really turning into a juicy conversation. I hope you're enjoying it as well. And so in this final piece of our show today, I really want to talk about something that's important for me. You know, I have a personal stake in these conversations around diversity and inclusion, more than just kind of perfunctory or performative check the box conversations. So, you know, as we have been discussing, Josh, I've actually heard you address these subjects of diverse inequities that we're having. And so tell us a little bit more about what you're doing as an ally in this work.
Yes. So what something happened. I think it was even around the George Floyd murder, where I was reading Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail. It was 1963. And he said something, and it just finally hit me the right way, where he talked about the white moderate. He says, you know, the biggest stumbling block for marginalized communities is not the KKK. It's not these openly racist people. It's the moderate that just looks the other way, that would rather have peace, what he called a negative peace, than positive justice. And when I read that, finally it hit me like, holy crap, I'm the damn white moderate. I'm the silent complicit majority. And I was like, I can't be that anymore. I can't do it. It's wrong. It's just wrong on every freaking level. And it was right at that point I decided, you know what? I need to have a different conversation with white people than other people can have. Because it's one thing if you're a person of color and you're telling white people who have been in the majority for 400 years essentially on this continent that, hey, stop suppressing us, stop doing the crap that you're doing, the systemic racism and all this stuff that's going on. That's one conversation, and that needs to happen. But I can have a different conversation with this person, one where it's like, hey, I could say we because on the race side we're the same. We need to stop this. It's just not right. Like, dude, come on. It's like me as a man, same thing with women, where I can have a conversation with a man and say, dude, stop freaking treating these women like crap. Stop the misogyny. We don't need to do this. So when I realized I had that power, not to, and I want to be very careful here, not to be the savior, not to be the one that goes in like, I'm going to help all the, fix all the Black people's problems kind of thing. No. Just to be another voice in the conversation, but have a different conversation. Because it's easy, and I did this. It's easy when let's say a Black person, a person of color comes and says, hey, look what's going on in my community. Look what your systems are doing to us. I can dismiss that. I could say, you're just biased, right? You're just saying that because you're trying to get stuff from me or whatever. But when another white person comes and says that, I don't have the same, I'm not come from the same place. They can't say that. They can't dismiss me like they can dismiss a person of color. So that's when I decided, like, you know what? We need to organize a little bit to help people like me, white folks, let's say, to realize the privilege, at least see it, and then give them an opportunity to have these conversations. And that's the approach I wanted to take. No more silent complicit majority. That's basically what I'm about, because I think that's where I can best help bring this to light.
And I appreciate hearing you say that. I was at a DE&I summit for the Navy back in February. I went out to Arlington, Virginia, and I got to give a presentation on active allyship. And I was one of many speakers, but one of the speakers, who was a white-bodied woman, really said that this conversation has to start with white men. And she was just very out there about it. Yeah. They've got to start the conversation, be the catalyst, be the drive before people of color can come in and say, okay, now this is what microaggressions look like, and this is how you can create safe, inclusive spaces, and so on and so forth. It's got to come from the white privileged male's desire to be better and do better so that we can all have better. So I really appreciate hearing you say that. I was telling one of my friends that she kept saying, where's all the white men? Where's all the white men? And I called her after I met you. I was like, I found one.
We're out there. There's not enough of us yet, but we're out there.
Yeah.
And I think it is changing, though. It is definitely changing. So look, it's funny when people say, well, what's your background? Kind of how did you grow up? I'll just openly say it that I grew up white nationalist. Now, I'm not talking the hood wearing, I'm talking, I went to the public school system where I learned white history. I watched cops that taught me that all Black people were criminals. I mean, I was in a white nationalist society because that's what we have.
Well, there's a lot of Black people that can say they grew up in that too, as
Yes.
white nationalists, hey, only Black in the school, Catholic school from kindergarten to high school. So, we learned the same history that you did, but we lived a different history than you did.
Correct. And I'm going back now, learning actual American history, going back to, I'm like, how come I never learned this?
It's really fascinating. In my Facebook group, The Intimacy of Race, I share something about real history daily. I get that information from the Equal Justice Initiative. So, wow, this has been really, really juicy conversation, something that I hope all of us get to really take in and see how we as individual humans can authentically be better and do better so we can all have better. So I do have another question for you.
Sure.
How do you make time for what matters most to you?
Well, I think you said it in your question. I make time for what matters most to me. I make time. First of all, time is a made up concept in the beginning, right? We're talking life. It's really what's important to you and how do you want to invest your life. I just make it happen. Like, I mean, there's some techniques or some ways to look at it. But I think we all do actually make time for what's important in general. We don't know it. But I think also when we're not clear on where we're going, we tend to find time for distractions. So I think that's kind of a litmus test. Like where is your time in your life going? And if it's serving you to move forward to your legacy, to your eulogy, to your mission, then you're making time for what's important. But if you find yourself being distracted, if you find yourself, even things like getting angry, things like being offended. I haven't been offended in 17 years, which when I say that, people get all weirded out for some reason, but
and then they try to offend you.
They could try, but it doesn't work. There's no button there. Like it's gone.
Well, that's a beautiful, special place to be for sure.
Yeah.
The reason why I asked you that specifically, because, what I noticed happening, especially around the time of, we're in this COVID lockdown, George Floyd's murder happens, and then we're all home to witness the murder over and over again, and the aftermath of protests and riots. And, it was just that pimple just got popped and exploded all over the place. And, for me, it was the emotion that came up around witnessing that sparked me into action. I really felt all of the work that my ancestors, everything my ancestors had to endure. And I felt I wasn't doing enough, but I didn't know what to do. Kind of like, how you help your clients. Like, what do I do? How am I going to make a difference? I'm not trained in this work. Just because I'm Black doesn't mean I automatically know how to train you on how to be an anti-racist. Like I have no clue, because I need to train myself how to be an anti-racist. I have my own stuff to deal with. Let's put it that way, on both sides. And so there was that mobilizing event. But what happens to me as a Black woman happens a lot quicker to white-bodied people is that when the dust settles and we go back to our regular lives, how do we continue to work towards this quest, this mission, this subject that is still important to us, but the urgency doesn't seem quite as urgent anymore? Because I always say, well, until another Black man gets murdered, but that happens pretty much daily, but in the news on a weekly basis, if we're being honest. I mean, it just happened recently with that.
The one that got shot in the back of the head?
Yeah, the unarmed man.
Unarmed man on the ground.
On the ground, gets shot in the back of the head. Yeah, and that didn't get the same level of protest. Like, how do we, with this being something that matters to us, how do we continue to make the time to show it the same level of importance? Like, how do you do it? Let me put it that way, because I'll share what I do. Because a lot of times I just feel like giving up. I'm exhausted. Nobody's listening. Who cares? They've moved on with their lives. It's not an urgent thing for them because they're not directly affected. But how does someone who doesn't have the level of urgency that someone in a Black body has stay motivated?
That is a fantastic question. I think it's something that I always say our empathy is on E. I always, every time I think so same thing with you, like around the George Floyd time, something just switched and it got turned on and I can't turn it off now. I call it seeing the Matrix. Like when you see the code in the Matrix, you can't unsee it. You can't pretend that it tastes like chicken anymore when you know it's not chicken. So that's kind of what happened. And for me, when I started seeing the code in the Matrix, that's when I left corporate. I can't unsee it. I can't forget it. It almost got imprinted in my heart. And there's nothing that's going to stop me from moving this conversation forward. It's innate. It's a part of me now because it's the right thing. There's a point in life where it's not about money anymore. It's not about what's easy. It's about what's right. Because otherwise, what's the point? If we're tiptoeing through life, to make it safely to death, what's the point? It's not about being comfortable. It's not about just getting by. It's not about just putting food on the table. There's got to be something bigger.
Something bigger.
This is one of those bigger things for me. Having these conversations with other white dudes that think, oh, I'm not privileged. I just, I work hard for what I have.
I work hard for what I do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course you did. But, there's people that have to work 3 times harder for the same thing. And you're at a different starting line. That's all. So
got it. Well, I want to leave some time here for you to share the free gift that you have for our listeners, because I think we have about a minute or two left. So talk to us about what you're offering special to people who are listening to the show.
Absolutely. And I don't offer this. You won't find this on my website, like public. I do it for only special audiences. But this is a 30-minute, especially for Eva's audience. This is a special 30-minute master session with me, a mastery session, where we will work on your unique, compelling, persuasive answer to the most important business question you're ever going to get asked, which is, What do you do?
Awesome.
How do you answer that in a great way, right? So
I love that. Yeah, people need that. So you can get that at www.joshzepas.com/WDYD.
For what do you do?
Exactly. What do you do? So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you to Josh for being my premier episode guest.
My pleasure.
Time has a wonderful way of showing us what really matters, right? And so even though this show is ending, this conversation does not have to end. So let's keep it going. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and make sure you join us next week at the same time, where my special guest will be Linda Gratton, author of Redesigning Work. And Linda will be showing us how hybrid work can work for everyone. So I am your host, Eva Medilek. And remember, real gratitude for life shows up on how we manage our time. So until next time, bye for now.
All right, you guys, you're all clear. That was a great show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jairi. I guess I'll see you next week.
Yeah, I'll have you again next week. You have a great rest of your week, okay?
You
Thanks.
too.
All right.
Take care.
You too,
So
Josh.
let me, Josh, I'm gonna just stop this recording right now.
You guys are still live on Facebook too. So
Yeah,
don't know if
I
that's-
gotta end that.
hi, Facebook. Bye, Facebook.